welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day and had a wonderful week so far. I wanted to come on here really quick and thank everyone for the views, the likes, the comments, and the subscribers. Thank you so much for hearing my story out. I know I'm not the best speaker. I don't do the best in articulating my words, but I did want to get my story out there. And that even if only a few people hear me out or watch my channel, it's helping me a lot to it's very therapeutic, but also hopefully people who watch my story um, can relate and, it might help them in the process. The other reason why I came on here was to do an impromptu story time. Um, so this is not necessarily another episode of my saga. This is just a quick story time of something I mentioned briefly in my last video. So yesterday on Instagram and my Twitter, I posted a very brief clip of the ending credits in this documentary called Knocking. This was basically a documentary that was released about 13 years ago, and it basically was about Jehovah's Witnesses, and it featured three different stories of people who dealt with serious adversities and how basically it impacted their faith in the religion and things like that. This documentary was filmed by a person that was raised a Jehovah's Witness, but they never became one. But it kind of featured the Jehovah's Witnesses in a generally favorable light. So it's a pretty popular, especially in the South where a lot of the scenes were filmed by Jehovah's Witnesses who enjoy sharing it. And it was featured on PBS as well. So it's something that people like sharing because it really does hold Jehovah's Witnesses in a very good light. So if you're interested in hearing this brief story time about how I came about to be a part of this documentary, please stay tuned. So just to clarify, the documentary was released in 2006. It was broadcast on PBS in 2006. But the filming that I was involved in actually happened in the fall of 2003. So I think because this journalist was filming three different people who were from three different parts of the country, kind of took him a while to get the filming together, compile it together, and release it. So that's why there's kind of a delay between when I actually participated in the filming and when it actually was released. But yeah, it was a pretty big deal back then. Terrence Howard actually narrated the introduction of this documentary. So it was a pretty big thing, and the people in my congregation really took pride in being a part of it. So the reason why our particular congregation was selected for this documentary was because the sister that was featured on there, when she was a little girl, she was actually expelled from school for refusing to salute the flag. And there was a whole court case and everything. And eventually they ruled in hers and her parents and the Jehovah's Witness favor. But at this point, she was an elderly sister in her 80s, and she was attending our hall. She was a really nice sister, very sweet personality. She did pass away a few years ago, so RIP to her. But that was the reason why our congregation was being featured. So they were interviewing her, and then they were going to take some scenes from her congregation and also some scenes of us preaching and knocking on doors and things like that. So basically, my mom mentioned to me that weekend that they were filming. I didn't come down there deliberately to be part of it. I just happened to be home that weekend. So I remember I was out running a shopping errand with my mom that Saturday, and she mentioned that the filming was going to happen the following day, the Sunday, that they were going to take a lot of shots of us on Sunday to basically in our Kingdom Hall, and that they were going to have us knocking on doors afterwards and get some filming of that. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't want to look crazy on camera. So I was prepared to make sure my hair was done, that I had a nice dress and everything, so that on Sunday I looked halfway decent for a change. But while we were talking about it, all of a sudden my mom's cell phone rang, and she got a call saying that they were on their way to our neighborhood and they were getting ready to actually film the preaching scenes that day, and that they were headed there in 20 minutes. Mind you, we are at, I think, Walmart or something, running errands, doing shopping. So we had to hurry back in the car, run back home, get changed, get dressed really quick. My hair was looking crazy. It was just a crazy time, I remember. And just us rushing back home, trying to find something to wear really quick, was pretty chaotic. But we managed to get dressed. Luckily, they didn't film my feet because my shoes were kind of raggedy. I practically had on flip-flops because I was just in such a hurry, and half my clothes were down in my dorm room 3 hours away anyway. So all my decent clothes were still at school. So it was a pretty crazy time, I remember. So the camera crew gets there. There's a couple of friends from the hall that are meeting us there. And I just remember us, basically going from door to door to our neighbors, knocking on doors, and there's a bunch of cameras in the background. And so it was kind of nerve-wracking, but it was also kind of cringy because basically I knew a lot of these people. They were my neighbors. And now, they see the neighbors knocking on their doors and having the filming crew in the background while we're pretending to preach to them. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. And the thing is, because our neighborhood was pretty close to the Kingdom Hall, we did that territory frequently, which I hated. I hated knocking on doors of people that I see, in my neighborhood and talking to them. It's almost as bad as going preaching in the neighborhood near where you go to school with your classmates. So it just kind of made the situation 10 times more awkward. Now, not only are our neighbors are we as their neighbors knocking on the door, now we've got a whole camera crew in the background. So they did a bunch of filming. I don't even remember the actual scene where they had us walking up. I guess they were filming while we weren't paying attention to make it look more natural. But we spent a lot of time filming, so they cut a lot of those scenes out. And the main one they left in was a scene of us walking up, which you could see basically in the closing credits. And it's also, if you have a DVD version of this documentary, it's actually on the menu, the main menu, it shows that scene. So it was pretty interesting to be a part of that. So they got done with filming and got, I guess, all the footage that they needed. And so the next day was our meeting. And of course, they were going to film some scenes in there of some footage of our congregation meetings and things like that. And actually, if you look at the thumbnail of the documentary on YouTube, which I actually put a link to in the description box. I also put a link to the video in this description box. The thumbnail is actually one of the elders that was in my home congregation. So I thought that was hilarious. But it was crazy. When we got there that morning, the Kingdom Hall was packed full of people, and everybody had on their Sunday best. It almost looked like a Baptist church service. Folks had their fanciest hats on, their fanciest dresses, and their suits. Everybody's hair was done. It was just crazy. And so I remember during the Watchtower study, when it was time to give comments and stuff, and the camera crew, every time somebody raised their hand for a comment, they'll zoom the camera into that person. And ironically, a lot more comments were given during that Watchtower study because I guess people were hoping to be a part of the documentary. But I remember it being a little, again, cringy and awkward. And I used to comment on a regular basis, even though I was socially awkward. I had got accustomed to commenting from when I was a little kid. And I kind of find it, I was really hesitant to comment that day because I didn't want no camera in my face. But it was just interesting when people know that that there's something going on in your congregation. It's crazy how people react, and the possibilities. So it was a pretty interesting time. It was kind of hilarious what people will do when they basically see a camera crew around, whether Jehovah's Witness or not. But I just wanted to share the little story in the background. Again, the documentary wasn't released till like 2.5, 3 years later. And so when it was released, of course, people in our local congregation was like, "Oh, we saw you on the documentary. Yeah, you were on TV." And I remember looking at the release version. I don't remember seeing myself on there. But when I saw the documentary, basically the menu playlist, and of course the closing credits, then I saw myself and my family on there. So it was a pretty little interesting thing. So that pretty much wraps up the story behind that filming. I actually find it kind of ironic that, fast forward 10 years later, well, 10 years after that, then I kind of left the religion. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting time. Um, so if you are interested in continuing to hear the rest of my story, I will continue my saga. In the next few days, I'll release another video. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to stay tuned. Also, continue to like, comment, and subscribe. Much love.